Welcome back everybody to another MOTOBOB video where you join us on another Ducati Media Day. We were here last week riding the Multistrada V2 and V4, but this time it's the Panigales, and I'm very excited to try this, the new Panigale V2. It's basically a ground-up redesign with a brand new engine, a new chassis as well. And while it was potentially a little bit controversial when it was first announced because it was, well, more than 30 horsepower, I think, down on the previous generation, Ducati actually claimed, because of the weight savings, it's the quicker bike round a track. That's all well and good though, but what's it actually like as a road bike? That's what I want to find out today. So let's take it for a spin and find out whether it's any good. Now before we get on the road, a massive thanks to Flying Eyes for supporting the channel and sponsoring this video. Flying Eyes make these phenomenal specs that are really bendy. Look, so they slide into your helmet, super thin, super bendy, and so they don't really create those pressure points on your temples that you can get with regular, standard spectacle frames. That means you don't get those irritating headaches that you can get with long stints in the saddle, and so they're super comfy and ideal for biking. Not only do they do prescription glasses, they do sunglasses as well, and there's a whole range of different styles and shapes, so there should be something to suit all tastes. And on a sunny-ish day like today, they've also got some magnetic sunglasses clip-ons that go over your prescription frames that mean you don't need to stop and swap to a pair of separate prescription sunglasses. They're a brilliant product. If you watch my videos for the last 2 or 3 years, I'll be wearing them in most of them, and that's just because I find them super comfy, both on the bike and off. So a massive thanks to Flying Eyes for their support. Do check out the links down in the description below to find out more. And there's also a discount code down there, specifically for our viewers. Now, immediately, I'm very much a big fan of this new engine from Ducati. I did have the chance to try it out last week in the Multistrada, but I was specifically looking forward to trying it in a more sporty application, to see if it's suited, and I think it really does make for a great sports bike engine for the road. Like I've already said, it's way less powerful in terms of peak power than the Super Quattro that it replaces in the previous gen Panigale V2, and that's been talked about plenty. But realistically, for road riding specifically, there's still plenty of power to get this thing moving pretty quickly. And also, it's not down on torque by the same sort of margin. So really in the mid-range, where you're spending a lot of your time on the road, it doesn't feel like there's a massive sacrifice. In fact, they've ditched the Desmo valves on this bike, and now it's got regular old spring-actuated valves. And one of the things that they've done at the same time as moving over to that more typical valve system is fitted it with variable timing on the intakes to give it, I believe, a better spread of torque across the rev range. So they've got some impressive figure that most of the torque's available all the way between, it's like 4,000 and 8,000 revs, or 4 and 9 or something like that. The specific numbers are probably not going to come to me right now, but you can feel it out on the road. There's a nice, usable bottom end to this engine. Lots of mid-range as well. And then when the road does open up a bit, it's really nice and free revving. I found that on the Multistrada V2 as well. It's happy climbing up the revs, and that gives it a sort of playful feel, which is, yeah, nice in the Multistrada, but obviously suits this bike even better. Plus, I also think it sounds quite good. I'm not sure how much noise you get in here, but yeah, there's a great sound to it in terms of induction down in the cockpit here. And then also a nice crisp
quick shifter, and so it's quite addictive just to give it a bit of throttle and pick up the speed. So for adventure touring or sports bikes, I'm a big fan of this engine, and I'm looking forward to doing some more miles with it, hopefully if we get a press bike for a bit longer. But I guess one of the other key benefits of it is the fact that it's super lightweight. In fact, they say it's the lightest V-twin engine that Ducati have ever made, and that's one of the reasons that they've been able to shed a really significant sum off this bike. In fact, it's also the lightest Panigale they've ever made at around 176 kilograms curb, I believe, or wet with no fuel, I think that is. So realistically more like, you know, 185 to 190 if you've got a full tank, but you can really feel it out on the road. This is so easy to get on with, not intimidating at all, and it just has so much agility. Whoa, this engine is great. Yeah, very, very easy to get on with. Point it where you want it. Great handling. This is the S model with the Olin suspension, so a firm, sporty ride. You've got the Brembo brakes, you know what they're all about. Brembo radial master cylinder. And so I don't think there were realistically going to be many questions about the handling on this bike. It was always going to be pretty good. But the thing that does stand out to me is that weight reduction, much the same as the Multistrada V2 last week. I thought that the amount of weight they've shed off that made it feel really nice to ride at low speeds, and then really lively when you were cornering as well. And yes, the same here, just of course quite a bit more focused. One thing that isn't too focused though is the riding position, which is quite moderate. You'll see with the handlebars here and the top yoke that actually the clip-on style bars rise up just above the top of the forks there, the fork caps, and yeah, it doesn't feel actually all that aggressive. It's kind of halfway between a naked bike and then a proper super sport. They feel a little wider than perhaps I'd expected, and not quite as turned in as maybe a V4 or something like that. And so yeah, you still feel like you've got decent maneuverability and leverage. There's enough steering lock as well, but I think crucially you're not all the way over the front wrenching your back just to get down to the bars. The seat is 835mm, so typical I'd say for this sort of bike. The pegs are tucked up a little bit, but not super cramped. And I guess what I like about it is, yeah, that comfort of the bars, but then a tall enough seat and tall enough pegs to feel like you're still riding, you know, properly quick and sporty bike. The sound of that quick shifter when you blip down, it's got a bit of a crack to it, or a cackle. Great stuff. Woo! Oh, that's a fantastic little stretch of road to enjoy a bike like this. Now, in terms of the, you know, rider aids and tech and dash and stuff like that, well, physically the switchgear and the TFT display are familiar because they're pretty much the same as the Multistrada. And I guess you'll find this on the Street Fighter V2 as well, although I'm yet to ride that one. But yeah, very nicely laid out. I like this direction pad, cruise control mode. There's a heated grips button, although I don't think this bike's got it. DRLs, and that's pretty much it. So not too complex. And although my camera's obscuring it, the TFT dash is nicely designed, nicely laid out, easy to get around. And then of course you've got a good selection of riding modes, although being a bit damp earlier today, we've tried out road mainly, a little bit of rain earlier, but no need to delve into the track modes today because that'll probably end up in tears. Naturally, within some of the more advanced modes, you can really get stuck into customizing it and changing all the settings and all that good stuff. But what I will say is a test like this, you know, a fairly brief amount of time with the bike is not really going to be where you're going to find out how good all that stuff is. I think a lot of it is for the track. Realistically, on the road, you just want it to save your ass if you do get a bit trigger happy with the throttle, you know, good, lean sensitive TC. Same for the ABS, good to know that that's there. But am I realistically going to start dialing in all the different settings? Probably not. And so, yeah, definitely do your research, watch a couple of track reviews, I'd say, if you want to know more about that. What I will say though is, you know, cruise control, great to have if you want to use this bike as a road bike, because occasionally there are stretches of motorway between the twisties. The general usability of it's really nice, easy to get on with. And so from that perspective of just getting on with the bike day to day and using it as a general road bike, it's decent. That sound is so addictive. I've been riding the V4 a little bit earlier, and although it sounds amazing, you know, to have that sort of MotoGP kind of sound, I still think there's something about this new V-twin, especially with the quick shifter, where it just has you wanting to slow down a bit so you can get back on the gas.
So look, some first impressions today with this bike. I really would like to spend a bit more time getting to know it, as I'm sure anybody would. But what I do like about it from today is this. You know, at one end of the sports bike spectrum, the very easy to get on with friendly stuff like the Ninja 650, you've got really sat up ergonomics that feel comfortable, almost like a naked bike, and very friendly delivery of power, braking and all that stuff. And so you can use those bikes day in, day out. Where they're less fun perhaps is on the track and when you want to ride quicker, because it's hard to get into a really aggressive riding position where you feel at one with the bike. One of my favorite sports bikes for road riding, I think it's still probably, well, it was until today at least, has been the Aprilia RS660, because it still has some of that comfort and usability, but just ramps up the performance so that it does actually feel exciting on the road. Great handling, great engine, feels super lively, good electronics, and yeah, with the riding position on that bike, I still felt like I could get tucked in and felt like it was aggressive enough to have a good time on it. In my experience, it's almost perfectly balanced in terms of practicality and sportiness, but what I did kind of feel like before this year was that if you wanted to go beyond that in terms of how premium the bike was, in terms of the components and the engine and stuff like that, then automatically the ergonomics started to get really quite aggressive. Just look at the previous generation Panigale V2 and it's a much more sporty riding position that's not going to be as pleasant to use on the road and as all-round practical. That's where I feel like this bike kind of excels. What I've really enjoyed about it today, it's some of that kind of versatile riding position of the Aprilia that I just mentioned, but given the Ducati treatment, so the desirability has gone up a massive notch. The looks on it are phenomenal. The suspension is like top drawer Olin stuff. The braking is top spec Brembo stuff. The electronics have got everything that you'll ever need. The weight of it is like, you know, track bike light. And then also you've got this new engine which really likes to rev up and is absolutely loads of fun while still maintaining a bit of bottom end with that variable intake valve timing. Now, of course, we're talking about two really quite different price points, so this is going to be a much more expensive bike than something like an RS660, but it feels like there's no penalty in terms of road riding for wanting to spend a bit more and have something that's a little bit bling. So yeah, very good, really enjoyed it. Like I say, there's probably more testing to be done to really comprehensively say how good it is, but if you were thinking of demoing one yourself, then, you know, you might want to go and check one out.
As always, I'd love to know what you think of the bike, so do let us know down in the comments below. And if you like the sound of this new V2 engine, but perhaps fancy something even more sat up and comfortable, then I'll leave a link to our review of the Multistrada V2 on the screen now, which we shot a couple of weeks before. Do hit subscribe for more of the latest motorcycle reviews right here on MOTOBOB. A massive thanks for watching today, and we'll see you in the next video.